Hello, and thanks again for watching the Yearbooking Report. I'm Sky Geezy, and here's another very special episode, a compilation of great interviews from our second season of the report, as we learn so many great new things from terrific yearbook pros from all over the country. Great for any yearbook advisor and staff. Again, grab your pen and paper, grab your device, whatever you take notes with. You're going to be learning a lot of things in this episode. We're really going to fill things up for you, getting ready for your next yearbook effort. So, here we go. Another thing to do here at the start of the new year is build your yearbook team. Think about it. Most yearbook staffs are pretty diverse, folks from different backgrounds. You have boys and girls, upperclassmen and underclassmen, veterans and rookies. So it's important here at the start of your new effort to build your team so they work well together all year long. Recently, we talked with a veteran yearbook advisor who shared some interesting ideas and insights on building your yearbook team.
Hi, I'm Kelly Shear, and I am Yearbook Advisor at South Williamsport High School in South Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Well, because if you don't, then you have 17 completely different opinions that just clash, and they will want to do it their way, and you have to find a way to get together and communicate, which is the utmost important skill to have on a staff. If you can't talk with one another, things fall apart. You miss deadlines. And that has always been one of our downfalls for us, is that if something happened outside of class, I tell them, I don't bring it into the room. When you come in here, you're best friends. I don't care if you hate each other when you leave my room. Because if you're not communicating, things will fall apart. We start with some class introductions, kind of getting to know each other, little question and answer sessions, just sitting around the table talking. And then we also start with interviewing process. So we interview each other, but then we practice interviewing for going out to businesses, because when we go to the community, I want my students to be prepared. So last year was our very first year that within the first 10 days of school, I had 3 business owners come in and talk with my students about how to properly, approach a business, talk to them, and kind of go over all the information that they would need to look for sponsorship. And then we did some practice sessions with those individuals, and it was probably the best experience for all of my students. Even the ones who were second year yearbook kids, they said they feel much better about going out into the community. So I think doing that early on in the school year opens them up a little bit to having more confidence in themselves. If we do like a donut day, an ice cream day, we will just kind of take some time out of our schedule, one class period here and there where we can afford to take time out, and just kind of get to know each other. We share stories, and we talk about places we've visited or things that we like to do outside of class. It's more important to get to know the person, more so than anything else. Last year was our first year kind of doing a little gift exchange with Secret Santa. The kids loved it. I encouraged them to send notes anonymously to each other about great work, keep it up, and some would even bring them to me for me to put at their computer before they would come into class. So I think that definitely helped brighten their day a little bit, but then also realize that they are valued. They are part of a little community. We have a couple work days throughout the year where it's not just in our classroom setting. We'll do either an evening session where, again, we buy pizza and have dinner and still work on the book, or we'll do a whole day of school working together, which my district has been great about giving us. And then we try to do at least 2 to 3 Saturday work sessions where the kids come in and it's just a great day. Sometimes we, play movies, or we'll watch, in the fall, we'll watch football just on the big screen, and it's a great time to just be together and to work and not have the stress of our school day. And then at the end of the year, we have actually started to do a team dinner. So that is right at the end of the school year. We try to do it in May. We get together, the staff, They like to dress up a little bit, and we go and have a nice dinner together.
Well, I've been saying this forever. What are the two keys to a great yearbook? It's organization and planning. Nail those two and everything else is easy. Easy. Question is, how's your organization right now? Do you even have one? A lot of folks don't. Recently, we talked with a great advisor from Texas on her ideas for good organization and why it is so important.
Hi, I'm Kristen Scott. I am the Yearbook Advisor at Keeling Middle School in Austin, Texas. Every student on my staff learns 4 or 5 basic things. All of the students on my staff learn basic photography. They all learn how to interview. They all learn how to write captions. They all learn what the fundamentals of basic page layout and design. But then from there, they're broken down into specializations, like various specializations. So I do have students who are in charge of business, and students who are in charge, and then I have photographers, and then I have writers and designers. And I think what that gives them is that gives them a specific focus. I will say that because my program, most years, I don't have a whole lot of returning students in my program. Most years I have to kind of start training from scratch each year on the first day. So a lot of times I put them in a role that they're not entirely confident or comfortable with, and occasionally I do have to switch the role as the year progresses, but the idea is that I'm open to this and they're open to change, and we try and communicate with one another. Like I have a lot of two-way feedback forms where I am asking for their feedback on what I'm doing, and I'm asking them to give me feedback so that I can put them in the position and in the place where they are best able to focus and most likely be successful. So I think it was my 3rd yearbook that I started having editors, and the editor was like the 1 or 2 students who had been on staff the previous year. So it started in a very traditional way where editors were those with seniority. What happened was sometimes the students who had seniority either didn't have flexibility in their schedule or didn't have the same desire or drive that some of the newer students had. And so I had to kind of adjust my expectation and my for student leaders by looking for kids who were willing to kind of go the extra mile, because for me that's critical, and maybe for most advisors, but definitely at middle school, because my students don't have cars, my students have computers. So if I have a student who wants to take the initiative and complete some work at home on their computer and another one doesn't, then the student who's taking the initiative is likely going to be the one who I'm going to select as a leader. I have a variety of student leaders. I have some photo editors, I have a copy editor, a design editor, and then I usually have an editor-in-chief. The kids ultimately make the decisions. We do a lot of brainstorming for coverage because we try really hard to keep the coverage fresh from year to year. I want this year's book to be different than last year's book. I want to make sure that if there is a story to cover, we cover it, and if there's not a story, that we cover that material in a manner that's still unique and different from the previous year. So if for some, like if there's no story about football, then we might do a series of player profiles from the team that year instead of doing like a traditional, this is what happened in the football season this year story. And so it's up to the students ultimately to find those stories and to figure out what they want to cover.
Well, here's a crazy idea. No matter what you're doing with your book right now, if you're a photographer, an editor, a writer, page designer, whatever, I want you to forget it. Just forget it. Instead, you have just one job. You are a storyteller, and there are so many people in your school that want their stories told. Why should we make it such a top priority to tell stories in the yearbook, which could also improve the life of your entire school? Recently, we talked with a veteran advisor who showed us the way on why storytelling should be your #1 priority.
Casey Nichols, and I live in Rockland, California. You know, we used to teach the 5 purposes of the yearbook, and I still do. It's a history book, and I'm a history teacher as well, a long time ago. But really it comes down to memories. And what are the things we're going to remember? We're going to remember stories. In our own life, we remember stories. We don't necessarily remember facts. In fact, we know ourselves by our stories. So I believe a yearbook has a potential to not just record memories, that's really what a yearbook is. It's a memory book. Yes, it has facts for history. Yes, it has PR value. Yes, it has indication. Yes, it has reference value. What did that guy look like? But really, it's a memory book. One of the first things I say when I teach even workshops now is we're going to tell stories in the yearbook, but I try to take their anxiety away by saying stories aren't necessarily copy. When we say stories, they think of a feature story. That's one way to tell a story. Photos are another. We want our photographers to think about, what's the story behind this photo or this set of photos? What story am I trying to tell by capturing these images? What words will go with them to help capture that story? The designer's job then is to display stories in a way that people want to read them. And again, read might be looking at photos. Read might be invitation to look at the headline. And read can look at all kinds of alternative copy formats. So my strong belief has been that the most important thing to do is to allow people to tell their own stories. And in fact, invite or encourage them to tell their own stories. So in my journalism teaching, we have strong emphasis on interviewing skills, and we have strong emphasis on gathering anecdotal stories in first-person voice, or what I call authentic voice, and allow people to tell their stories because they want to. We're capturing really the heart of student life in 2020. And you can apply that in sports, academics, across the board. And it was compelling to read. And a lot of the stories were not very long. So I guess I would summarize it by this. I got to the point towards the end where I believe this. Student media has the potential to be a force for empathy and understanding on the high school campus, or middle school, okay, but especially high school. And when we think about the mental health issues and anxiety, stress, all those things that students are going through today, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. If we can help promote understanding of other people and realize, we all got stuff. We've got great stuff, we've got hard stuff. Then we're kind of a force for good on campus, and I love that idea. I think one of the mistakes we make as yearbook people is we sit in our room and we make a yearbook. And sure, we go out and shoot photos and things, but we're not part of the school every day. So Instagram, in our case, it's potential. Some schools have pulled it off with Snapchat. I don't see that because it's a little goofy to me, but I know some schools have made it work. Some schools have made it work with Twitter if that's where your kids are at your school. But ours, Instagram was the thing that worked. So we published, we tried to post on Instagram between anywhere from 5 to 15 times a week. No more than 3 times a day was kind of the rule. If they were doing a cool lab in their chemistry class, they would ask the teacher, like, can I use my smartphone to get a photo of this? And they would post it on Instagram. But sometimes it was from sporting events. Sometimes it was a group of kids who went on a hike. We wanted to show our student body that we were part of their life every day. The way I would describe it to my own students is we want to be part of the conversation every day.
In my 20 years of yearbooking, I've noticed many people really struggle with good page design. Usually they just randomly plop down elements on a page without any real plan. Well, good page design always has a plan. And recently we talked with a real expert who's been helping many schools for decades to get some ideas and insights on how you can do it too.
Hello, I'm John Cutzinger, and I'm from Orlando, Florida. But I do believe that yearbooks have made a dramatic change. The first change that I see is the fact that we're serving a much greater need than we used to. We used to do what I call universal coverage, which means that we actually just covered activities and events, homecoming, prom, the football game on Friday night, the Spanish club meeting at the taco bar, whatever. We just did universal coverage. We really weren't into intimate storytelling. And so I see that as being the major change content-wise of the book, is that we're doing intimate storytelling where we're talking about homecoming and prom and the football game, but we're doing it through the eyes of those who are actually experiencing it. We're letting them tell their unique, one-of-a-kind stories. Quotes should be so intimate that only one person could say it. Then we know we've got that unique story. So that's my mission now. My mission now is to make sure that our quotes in our yearbooks are meaningful, bountiful, and personal. So that's one of the major changes. Of course, design has changed to accommodate greater storytelling. The move from traditional 5 to 7 photographs on a spread, which did do that universal coverage, has now become spreads that have anywhere between 15 and 25 photographs that allow for a great deal more of individual storytelling. So we've gone from universal to what I consider to be very personal storytelling. And design has to keep up with that. So we're seeing a continuation and an expansion of traditional design to modular design to freeform design. I'm really in the freeform camp right now of letting content drive our design. The old adage that if you don't know what you're designing, how the heck are you going to design it? And there are 5 basic principles that I really love to use. Hierarchy and contrast is very important, making sure we have big, medium, and small, and that's true in both photos as well as type. I mean, we're going to have headlines that are really big, we're going to have copy, which is about 10 point, we're going to have captions that are 8 point. So there's our big, medium, small. And then we'll have large module, medium-sized module, and little modules. And then we'll have big photos, medium-sized photos, and small photos. Now, we do that for contrast because contrast creates visual energy. It keeps our spread really, really, really active. So after we do that, we want some elements that are consistent. And that would be our copy and our captions. We want to be really consistent with the spacing that we put between each one of the photos in a grouping. When we have a collection of photographs, we want them less far apart than say the space that we put between modules, because we want to separate those. The little spacing unifies those photographs in the collection. We want to make sure that we have a balance. Balance means that we've got, I kind of have my own little formula. I like about 75 to 80% photographs and then 20 to 25% writing, because we know that we're a very visual society. We know the reason that kids buy the book is to see themselves in it. However, we also know that a great photograph inspires a story that can't be answered just by the photograph, so we need captions for every photograph in the book, almost without exception. There are a few breaking the rules places. And so we want to be consistent in the way we treat color, and we want balance in that color. We want some color on the left-hand page and some color on the right-hand page, making sure that any color we use is functional, which means it highlights an element that we know deserves additional attention. We want to do something really good with alignment. When we're looking at the spread, we want 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 horizontal eye lines, kind of like clotheslines, and then we're going to line everything up on those horizontal lines to give it a really good planned look. And we can also do that vertically. We can create vertical eye lines so that we can align elements. And what that does is just really give it a great planned look. And then lastly is proximity. And that's the amount of space that we leave between modules and between primary and secondary headline, and between photos and between photos and captions. And that lends itself to telling our reader what goes together and what doesn't.
Well, I wonder how many students are getting one of these or got one of these for Christmas. We all know that smartphones are amazing instruments that can do really cool stuff, from pictures to videos to using creative apps. How can we use this as part of our yearbooking effort? Recently, we talked to a veteran photographer and instructor at Penn State University who shared a list of great ideas when putting one of these to work.
I'm John Beal. I'm associate professor. I teach photojournalism in the Belisario College of Communications at Penn State University. I don't see smartphones replacing the DSLR anytime soon for professional photographers. But I do think that smartphones have certainly earned their place in the landscape of photography. There are a number of publications that are using it, the broadcast outlets that are using it for certain applications. I think the quality now is to the point where I would not hesitate to use it for a yearbook, or I would not hesitate to use it for a newspaper or a video clip for a broadcast. There are certain applications where it works, and there are sometimes where it's just not the best choice. For instance, would be sports. You're not going to want to use a cell phone for shooting sports. The zoom and the number of frames per second, things like that, the size of the frames, I just don't think they're going to work as well for sports as what the DSLR is going to, at least at this point. But for just everyday feature picture, photographing breaking news to get something out quickly, I think that's a pretty good choice. As far as taking a still image for a yearbook, I really don't think it makes a difference. It's going to depend on how you're publishing it. Make sure you're shooting at the highest resolution. Make sure that you are not shooting at a smaller resolution that it's going to be too small for you to publish and look well. I always tell my students, zoom with your feet rather than with the camera. If you pinch to zoom in from the camera, you're also magnifying the shake. And so I think that you're going to be much further ahead by moving close in. Try to fill the frame as much as you can. Consider what is in the foreground of the picture, consider what is in the background. Is what's in the foreground going to add or detract from the picture? I once heard that in photography, you want to compose for the background. Of course, we're interested in the subject. We want to know that we've captured that moment with the subject, but also we have to be very cognizant of what's happening in the background. Is there a tree coming out of their head? Is there a lamp coming out of their head? Is there a bright light that is going to draw the viewer's eyes to that rather than our subject? Hold the camera steady by locking your arms together.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, I'll see a lot of people who are holding their phone out here.
Out in front of them.
Out in front of them. And it's really difficult to be steady whenever you're holding the camera out here. But if you have your arms next to your body and you're holding it like this, you can be much more steady. And if you're doing a portrait, rather than shooting a photo of them, making the photograph in bright sunlight, take them over into the shade. And the light's going to be more even. They're not going to be squinting. It's going to be much more pleasant. If you touch on your subject, you're going to be telling the camera, touch with your finger on the screen, you're going to be telling your camera, okay, I want this to be in focus, and I want the color correction to be for this part of the frame. Sometimes it's worthwhile, if you're going to photograph someone, is to turn out the room lights and just have them next to a window so that you only have one source of light. Our brains are amazing things. We look at a white sheet of paper inside a room, and it's under a fluorescent light, like we're in here, and it looks white. We go outside in daylight, we look at that same sheet of paper, it looks white, but the camera doesn't always see it that way. And we have to be considering that whenever we make the picture. The one that I would recommend is called Pro Camera. It allows you to set a shutter speed, it allows you to set an ISO. It's not real expensive, and I think it's really helpful. The photo app, the camera app that's in the phones, I think it's very good. And for a lot of applications, that's fine. But if you want to make sure that you're going to have a fast enough shutter speed to stop some action, once again, we're not going to use this for sports, but maybe it's people dancing or something like that, or outside playing basketball, just a pickup game, and you can get close to them. I think Pro Camera is a good choice, and you can actually you have some control over how the camera is going to make the picture.
Well, here at the midway point of the school year, are you doing those promotions we just mentioned? And not just for your yearbook sale, but also for your group's hard-working efforts. Do the folks in your building even know what you're doing? Shouldn't be a secret. Recently, we talked to a top advisor from Texas on ideas she uses with her outstanding yearbook.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Pollard. I am Yearbook Advisor for the Leopard Yearbook at Lovejoy High School in Lucas, Texas. It really is looked at as one more thing. We're so full. We have so much on our plates day in and day out that sometimes the promotion or the marketing piece is just like, oh, I don't have time for that too. And what I've learned over time is sometimes when you take that risk of putting in a little more time or take that risk of investing into some kind of business plan that your staff can contribute just a little bit, not a ton. But if everybody can all just invest a little bitty part, it can pay off big. If all we're gonna do is come to work and come to school every day and go into our media room and huddle around a computer or be the one behind the camera, that faceless person behind the camera, and we just go in and we kind of huddle around and everything magically appears, in my opinion, what I've learned is that the student body thinks that this just magically appears. And it's our job to make sure that they understand that what we do is a lot of work, and there's a lot of planning, and there's a lot of method that goes into it. There's so much to be learned with skill building for the kids, but at the same time, there's so much to be learned about self-promotion and for the kids to understand that they have to market their homework essentially. And with that comes some storytelling and some engagement, and it doesn't have to be another thing. It can be this super awesome connection that you make with your community. We would have kids come into our room in August, and they would, and they have nothing to do with our staff. They just know who we are, and they felt comfortable enough to come in and say, oh my gosh, what is the theme this year? Like, what have you guys decided that you're gonna put together for the school this year? Like, they're fired up about it. And to me, there's no better compliment than somebody who's not on our staff who wants to know about what we're doing. And I just don't believe in keeping it a secret. If you do, I think your sales will be have an outcome on that. There will be a cause and effect. To me, this is a culture thing. This isn't about marketing. This isn't about sales. This isn't about just to drive sales. Like, we need to take our Zoom lens and zoom out and to really think about this from several standpoints. One, if you self-promote, then everybody's going to see the hard work. They're going to appreciate the hard work that goes into it if you are able to share your experience with your population. Not only that, but people start to understand, like, if there's a mistake that's made, they understand it from the standpoint of, oh, well, this wasn't really easy to put together. I mean, gosh, we're all human. There's that standpoint. But then also on top of that, it gets people excited about what you're doing, and they get to be a part of that process. And I think with any product on the market, anytime a consumer can be part of the process, it's like they have an in and they have that special VIP treatment. One of the ways that we try to really bring our community into our story is we ask them for their feedback. When we're in the theme building process and we're trying to figure out, like, what is our theme going to be, we don't just stop at the people around the table doing the decision making. We're also looking at several people on the outside looking in and explaining to them, like, here's what we're thinking about a theme. This is what we're thinking about, putting on the cover. This is what we think it might look like. What do you think about that? If they don't know that they're being covered, then why would they want your product? Research has shown that kids want to see themselves and see their friends in the book, and if they don't know that they're in there other than their portrait, for some kids that's just not enough to buy. So we've got to make it worth their time in order to buy it.
Okay, now what's a CAM? Well, that's short for Creative Accounts Manager. And we at Jostens have a whole series of these folks all across the country, filled with great ideas and inspiration. Recently, we had a chance to sit down with one of our terrific CAMs, and the ideas just flowed. Have that notepad ready? Here we go.
Hi, my name is Lizabeth Walsh, and I'm a Jostens Creative Accounts Manager from Las Vegas, Nevada. What I get to do is so much fun because instead of working with just one group of students, whether that be 4 students, 30 students, 70 students, now I actually get to work with students all over the country. And I don't even have to physically be there, which is really cool. You have to love the digital age because now I can either use a shared session in Monarch and we can both be on the same page at the same time, talking back and forth and sharing ideas. We can use Skype, which I've done with a couple of my schools, and it's actually been rather fun. We can email ideas back and forth, and sometimes small schools will just pick up the phone and say, if you have a couple of minutes during this time, this would be great, and we'll actually just have a conversation. So whether it is a staff management question or concern, or something having to do with the actual design of the book, we can work virtually too, which makes that just a wonderful resource for all of our schools, no matter what they are able to do financially. I've seen a lot of students pair up, so an experienced student will take a new yearbook student with them, and instead of go get the interview, it's come with me, let's go talk to some people. And if they look at it from the point of view of just, I have a couple questions to ask you, or can we talk to you for a moment, that's a lot less intimidating than I need a quote for yearbook. So simply by doing the better storytelling approach, doing the better I just want to sit and talk with you approach, we see a lot better quality work. And having older students who have done this before mentor the younger students tends to result in everybody doing a better job. They say to teach is to learn twice. So that type of senior staffing mentorship of the younger staffers works really nicely. I'm really a fan of casting a wide net because everybody can do something. So I've seen staffs that have lots of different kinds of students on their staff, and they tend to find different ways of interacting, and I really love that. So one student might be a great photographer but doesn't necessarily interact from behind the lens. So putting another student who's incredibly talkative but really just doesn't want to hold still that much so they don't get great focused shots, pair the two of those students together and now you have an interviewer and a photographer going out together. Those types of things, when you think about how can we best use everybody's talents and interests and skills, that's going to get you a great yearbook staff. Really, yearbook writing isn't necessarily writing as much as it is letting other people do the storytelling for you. One of the things that we see in really top quality yearbooks is a lot of storytelling done by the people who were there and are actually telling you the story. It's not my job as a writer to say all of the things that happened and to fill you in on how everybody felt. It's my job to ask a question and then allow them to tell me what happened and how they felt about it, leaving only about 20% of the work for me to just connect the dots, one thing to the next, to gather a few facts, to do a little bit of research, and maybe some statistics. And the rest of it, other people did the work for me. All I have to do is type it in. They already said it. One of the greatest things about being on yearbook staff is that you are the guardians of the history of the school. So if nothing is happening in your school, you don't have anything to put on the page. So you might as well just get up and go make something happen. And that's really fun. So what students tend to think of as tradition is usually only about 4 years old, because students are usually in school for only about 4 years. So don't be afraid to buck some of those traditions and go out and make something new happen, because when you make something new happen, you're actually helping to change the culture of your whole school. That's fun.
Well, social media is now a part of everything today. Think about it. Facebook Live, the president's tweets, Instagram slideshows, and yes, even Snapchat and TikTok. It's everywhere. Everybody's using social media, so why isn't your yearbook staff using it? And most don't. And ones that do could probably do even more. Recently, we talked with a Jostin social media programmer for some ideas on using social media and how to get started.
Hi, I'm Jordan Weber. I am a consumer marketing specialist at Jostin's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I think that it's important to probably start off with one or two platforms that you would feel the most comfortable using. I know for us, we always usually recommend Facebook and Instagram just because, I don't know if you know this, but they're actually linked. So Facebook bought Instagram, so it's easy to push out content on both platforms at one time if you have both accounts. It's really easy in order to navigate that, as well as you're getting both audiences. Typically, older Gen X type generations use Facebook, and younger Gen Z, since we grew up with that, digital outlet usually tends to use Instagram. So you're getting both audiences of the advisor and the parent, as well as the student and the staff. I think that the most important thing, though, to look at right now is who you follow. So following accounts pushes your interest and obviously your creative content out there. It gives you good marketing and sales ideas, as well as anything that really piques your interest or gains new ideas or triggers new ideas is something that you would want to post on your account. But if you're really struggling for content, something I always recommend and that we actually use too, if you ever see me commenting on one of your photos, is to use your community. So what it is called is user-generated content, or UGC as we like to call it. So I know a bunch of students post at fun events like football games, basketball games, are involved in a bunch of sports and clubs and extracurriculars. And I think it's really unique and interesting in order to use your students as well as your teachers who might double as a coach or like to get educational background more on the side of just teaching. And so I think it's really awesome that you make sure you highlight those students and teachers and educators as well on your platform, and you just ask them for permission on their photo, or you can DM them and in order to repost it on your platform. So I think it'll be really cool because everyone likes to be, as they call it, Insta famous and get showcased on a different platform. So don't be afraid to be creative, and I think it's really important just to test those different ideas with your audience in order to know what works and what doesn't work. Be interactive, ask questions, maybe throw in a poll, or just make people comment and tag below in order to get some feedback. A lot of it actually is the students, which is really cool. I know that it obviously takes a lot of creativity and then a lot of ideas and people behind what content they produce, but I've noticed a lot of them are like videos of the staff trying to sell their yearbook, or even little like skits or plays. It's really cool just to see their creative minds come together and produce just amazing work. And I think it really depends on their community and their ideas and what they're kind of coming up with. I don't think there's really an amount you should have to post every day. As long as you're getting that engagement and people are commenting or liking it. That's what kind of testing the waters is really all about. And that's kind of why we always recommend to pick one or two accounts just to start with. I guess I would really just start off with maybe once or twice a week, just seeing if there's engagement. And if there isn't, then stay consistent with just posting once or twice a week and switch it up with maybe just an image or a video or whatnot. And then if people are interacting and wanting more, then start posting more. It's really kind of just a test, and whatever works for you is just the best thing.
Well, as we wrap up this school year, we recently talked to a top yearbook advisor from Las Vegas. Now, be sure to listen to our Yearbooking Report podcast for the entire interview, including tips and ideas on organizing your staff, responsibility of students, and more. But here we wanted to just discuss the question that everyone's asking: what's going to happen next year? Are things really going to be different? Are schools and yearbooking somehow going to be changed? Our guests had some pretty interesting views.
Hey, I am Matt Laporte. I am from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I am the Yearbook Advisor at Southwest Career and Technical Academy. The kids just finished up their theme projects. They did that all virtually. I gave them some framework in terms of what I wanted to see from them. And then they had little groups that they worked in, and they figured out how to go about collaborating, communicating, and putting it together. We did some formal presentations, and we have a theme decided, basic concept, because that's fun, and they're home, so they have a lot of free time to do things that they think are fun, looking for fonts and visual inspiration and making videos that they could use as a promo. Like, that's all fun stuff, so that wasn't really difficult. I don't plan on asking them to do anything over the summer. I find that that's a exercise in futility, and I'd rather not put myself through that. So we're gonna see what they choose to get done over the summer, and then we're gonna have to leave our ladder in flux. I mean, a lot of the time, or all the time, we do at least 3 spreads of summer coverage, and right now they're trying to figure out what will that look like, because we've done about 7 or 8 potential spreads right now for COVID, and at some point you have to let that go. You don't want the whole yearbook to be just about this virus. And we pick up our year in March, so next year's yearbook goes from March to February. So we'll be telling the story of what happened during the quarantine. I think that people are going to be way more comfortable now with using teleconferencing to conduct interviews, because now people have been forced into understand the technology. For so long, we've told kids, interviews are best face-to-face, but we sort of have dabbled into the world of FaceTime or Google Hangouts. And I think now it's going to give more access to students, because they're going to be able to teleconference with people that maybe are in a state over or even a country over. And instead now of having to worry about, well, that person doesn't know how to use this particular technology. I don't think that there's very many people here that haven't done at least one Zoom and have figured out how to access it, and that it's not really that difficult. So I think it's going to maybe open up technology for more people, especially in terms of communication. I think social distancing is definitely going to be something that's going to become the norm in terms of, things like shaking hands. A lot of people are saying, I'm not shaking hands anymore. Why have we been shaking hands? It seems like the easiest way to transfer germs. So what is that going to look like, So I think that there's definitely going to be some things that change. Journalism and yearbooking, at the end of the day, telling a story is telling a story. How that story gets told, that might be different. We might be way more reliant now on writing than we have been in the past. There may not be the images to support what it is that we want to tell. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest learning curves. We all want to tell great stories, but that doesn't mean that we have the pictures to go along with it. And we know copyright exists, so you can't just go onto Google Images and just start taking pictures of things related to COVID and calling it your own. So there's going to have to be some creativity in the way that we depict that visually and verbally.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our great compilation from Season 2 of the Yearbooking Report. A lot of great ideas there. What can you and your yearbook staff do with them? Let's go out and make your best effort ever. Thanks again for watching.